For all this talk of coronavirus and race relations, the issues that the mainstream media has told us are important to voters in this election, it's taken that old familiar line of "it's the economy, stupid." Trump is leading, he's winning, and he's winning in key states, the states he needs to win this election. And coming up in the show, we're going to be breaking down why he's winning and who he's winning with. But before we get into that, if this is the first time you're watching us, this is Political Election 2020. I'm Yain Smith, and as always, I'm joined by Connor Allen.
Hello, everyone.
Before we get into this, please take the time to subscribe, click that notification bell if you are enjoying our content. Leave a like, comment down below, tell us what you think about our analysis of the polls. If you think we're right, if you think the polls are right. But the best thing you can do is share this video with your friends and family on your social media, wherever it is you may be, and spread this content out with other people. So, get straight into it. The latest poll come out just today from ABC News, Washington Post.
Especially your fans.
Yeah. Shows Trump winning in Florida with likely voters by 4 points. 4 points. I mean, we're getting into the territory of lean Republican now for Florida. Demographics are shifting there, and Trump is winning quite convincingly now, Connor.
Massive, isn't it? 4 points. I mean, when you're considering that there's going to be a slight bump for Trump anyway, with the secret conservative effect.
Yeah.
And you're considering we still have the debates to come, when we're still considering we had the Breonna Taylor result today, that there's going to be a huge surge in BLM protests still to come. I mean, we could be looking at a Trump landslide here.
It certainly looks that way because the trends are now showing a kind of Trump resurgence. It started with the RNC and it's continued on. And I mean, it began really when Biden started to come out and campaign. Once people started to see Biden, they started to shift away from him, or at least become less enthusiastic about him, shall we say.
So it's clear he's a poor campaigner, and as the campaign has gone on, everyone's seen those videos of him with the teleprompters, the goddamn teleprompters. It's so amateur. Every time he goes up, you're waiting for the blunder, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you remember, Trump held a rally. And he was making fun of Biden because Biden had to take a night off. He had to have a nap.
Yeah.
He's feeling a bit tired. And Trump was there saying, I'm working my ass off. I'm on every corner of the country.
Yeah,
it's right. And people are seeing that.
This is anyone who has, older family members, grandparents or whoever who have mental cognitive issues know that they have on days and off days. And Biden seems to be having many of these off days. And it seems, you can tell when he had to make the comment about Ruth Ginsburg's death, he just looked, out of breath and flustered. Like he wasn't expecting to have to make a public appearance that day, and you could tell because he was just out of breath. He took no questions. He just kind of mumbled on about some stuff, and a lot of it didn't really make any sense, to be honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. And I can see, we do have some Democratic listeners, and I can see they're kind of heading towards the dislike button now already. They're planning to turn off. You guys were saying this in the primaries. If you watch the Young Turks, they hate Joe Biden, okay? You guys were the first warning bell, and none of the Democrats wanted Joe Biden. You're stuck with him, and suddenly you're having to change tack and try and deny the obvious, but
yeah,
it's impossible, isn't it?
But putting aside Biden's, poor campaigning performance so far, it's Trump's strengths, we believe anyway, that are actually causing him to take the lead here in Florida. And it's a familiar story on the other side of the Sun Belt, Arizona, with 49 to 48%. Now, obviously, well within the margin of error, but Trump just edging it there over Biden with likely voters. And obviously, we do expect Arizona to be quite a lean Republican state. You'd expect them to be winning there convincingly. The thing is, obviously, the demographics have changed there quite considerably. There's a lot of Californians who are fleeing from their failed state and moving to Arizona and voting in now, or at least intending to vote in the same government that ruined the state that they were already living in.
Absolutely. And what's interesting to me about this Arizona result is this is after Sarah McCain came out and endorsed Joe Biden. And of course, the McCain family is still big in Arizona, still carry a lot of weight politically. And you still not shifted it. Trump is still in the lead. You can be fairly certain he's winning it on the election day. As we said before, secret conservative effect.
Yeah.
Not going to tell a polls that you're voting for Donald Trump. Not in the age of cancel culture, BLM. They could turn up at your house, okay? You're not telling anyone who you're voting for, let's face it.
Yeah, I think the reality is as well, when you're just looking at that national shift, when people see Trump, they like him. When people see Biden, they dislike him. And this is the trend that we see. So Trump starts his rallies again. People are listening to him, directly rather than through the lens of the mainstream media more. They're beginning to like him more. They see Biden, who's being forced out of the basement, having to campaign. He's going to be showing up to debates. We presume that's what he says next week. It's surely he needed to maintain that lead that he had during the peak of the pandemic, where everything seemed to be going against Trump. He needed to maintain that lead, and he hasn't. He's already lost significant ground. Now Trump is winning these states. He's going to be on the defensive on the Rust Belt because that's the next target that Trump will be going after.
It's so crazy to think because the Democrats are outraising the Republicans by a huge margin here. Yeah. They are flashing the cash about, but what they're doing is they're allocating resources away from the areas they should be targeting because they are losing their poll lead. And they're giving it to places like Texas, to where else are the Democrats targeting? To all these fanciful states, Georgia, okay, true red-blooded states, but it's a trap. They're falling into that trap of devoting time and resources to these states they'll never win.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, they might make it a little bit closer. Can we just talk about Mini Mike as well, Mike Bloomberg, because he is committed to putting $100 million into Florida, and he's just paid millions and millions to pay the fines of felons so they can vote, and they're presuming that they're going to vote for Biden. If that is the case, I don't know whether that will necessarily be true, but the point is, doesn't this seem a bit weird that you have this multi-billionaire backing the Democrats? Aren't they supposed to be the party of the average Joe, the working class? Why is this billionaire pumping tens of millions, hundreds of millions really, into helping the Democrats in a key state of Florida?
And you really see the difference, don't you? Because obviously Donald Trump also a billionaire, but he has that connection with the voters. He's so authentic, and the voters see him and they like what they see. They know damn well that Donald Trump isn't cutting secret deals behind their back. He would just come out and say it, for whether you like him or dislike him, he would just say it. But this Mike Bloomberg, he's a bit of a coward, isn't he? He likes to do things in the shadows, behind the backs, and there is a bit of a reason that Trump's more of a successful businessman than him, because I don't think Trump would ever sink $100 million into a failing campaign in Florida, and then he comes out 4 points behind. I'm
just gonna rattle off some names here: Bloomberg, Romney, McCain, Mattis, Bolton. What do they all have in common? They were all beaten by Trump and humiliated, essentially, and they're out for revenge. They hate the guy. Everywhere the guy goes, he seems to create these enemies because he keeps beating them.
He's a winner. He's a serial winner. Like, the man knows how to win, and the common man, people like you and me, Ian, we like that. We like to see a real winner and someone who everything he touches it turns to gold. We like to see that. We don't like to see these losers who have to, sneak around in the shadows and still end up losing. This is a film. Trump would be the hero.
Oh yeah, 100%. So why is Trump winning in Florida now? Well, here's the thing. I said it to you in the beginning of the video. What's the most important issue for people? Well, you would think it would be something like coronavirus, maybe the riots and the protests, or race relations, and what's been going on. No, the biggest issue for people still is the economy. And that's Florida. And, well, listen, this is at least in the Sun Belt anyway. Florida, Arizona, 31, 33% concerned about the economy. Coronavirus, that number's trending down. People seem to, I guess they're getting used to this idea that the virus is going to be around, and they just need to return to some normality in their life, learn to live with corona instead of running away from it all the time.
Well, the thing is as well, the coronavirus and the economy are so inextricably linked.
Yeah.
For months and months, you've had Democrats calling for a nationwide lockdown. We have both been in nations that have had nationwide lockdowns, and we suffered the greatest economic shock in recorded history. There are hundreds and thousands of people, if not millions, losing their job. Entire sectors, the hospitality sector's disappeared overnight. Like, can you imagine 3, 4, 5 million people losing their jobs just like that? That's crazy. And this is what the Democrats are calling for. Most people realize that with a pandemic, actually, you can't save everyone, and you've got to prioritize the economy so that you have a short-term pain, but it goes away once the vaccine's there. It doesn't take 15 years to repair the pain and the suffering and the mental shocks.
Exactly. And why can't people just be responsible for themselves? If they think they're at risk, then they take measures to stop that. Or to stop, contracting the disease. But if somebody who is at risk goes out and says, I don't want to wear a mask and I just want to do this and I want to do that, then that's fine. That's up to them. Then
they can take the risk if they want to.
Why do they have to hold everyone's hands and tell them what to do with this situation? Like, we take all sorts of risks in our life every single day when we go out and, and get in a car and drive. When we go and go on holiday to somewhere or whatever, might be going to somewhere that obviously might, if you don't know the area so well, tourists or whatever and things like this, are targets. So we're taking risks all the time with all the decisions that we make in life. This would just be one of those other risks. Another thing that we have to think about, another thing that we have to be concerned about. It seems crazy to me that it would shut down the whole economy effectively for that.
But it isn't really, because if you look at the leftist ideology, it's all about control. They want to control the economy. They want to build the state up so it has an influence on every sector of your life, whether that be healthcare, whether that be your right to bear arms. They want control response to the outbreak. They can't for a second foresee that an individual will take responsibility for themselves. God, no. That's the state's job.
Exactly. And I think, this is why so many of, obviously, the Midwest states are so heavily Republican, because they just want to be left alone. And they believe that there's more chance of that happening with a Republican in power than a Democrat in power. So the economy is the most important issue for voters. And overwhelmingly, I'm going to say overwhelmingly, they believe that Trump is the right man to deal with the economy over Biden. And I think that comes off the back of, a track record. That's not wishful thinking. That's a track record.
Done it once.
Right.
But when he was saying he's built the greatest economy in history, he wasn't lying. It's objectively measurable in numbers.
Yeah.
He did do it. And then the coronavirus happened. Or who do you trust to build the economy again? The man who's done it once, or the man who had 8 years as a prime as a vice president, and he didn't do such a great job, did he?
Well, exactly. So, and here's the thing: the coronavirus as well. Surprisingly, Trump not actually that far off. When it comes to who the voters trust more to handle the coronavirus outbreak. I think maybe there's, I don't know, like I say, maybe like 2 or 3 factors there. One is it's less of a concern for people now because they've been living with it for so long. The other thing is, like you say, it's when you think coronavirus, for a lot of people, they're probably thinking the economy anyway, right? So when how to deal with the coronavirus outbreak, they're thinking we'll get the country open again, right? And maybe they trust Trump to do that more. And maybe the vaccine as well. Maybe obviously the talk of the vaccine potentially coming out sometime within the next month or two, potentially, or at least some people will start to be inoculated in the next month or two. I think all of these factors combined, just again, it's all of the trends are going towards Trump and everything that we see. And I think probably the biggest shock in all of that, I don't know if you'd call it a shock. It's a shock for the Democrats, but it's not a shock for me. Trump is doing very, very well with Hispanics. He has about 40% of Hispanic voters
Love him.
in Florida.
Love him.
Yeah.
Do you know why it is as well? It's because the Hispanics in Florida, they moved there legally. They came from places like Cuba, where they suffered under communism, or second, third generation. They come from places like Mexico. They worked hard. They built their education. They applied for the visa, and they came there legally, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to live in crime-filled ghettos that the Democrats would relegate them to, because they would. The Democrats, any illegal can enter the country. Well, you can't police them, and they enter these poor economic neighborhoods. They suffer from problems like drug crime and stuff, exactly because they're invisible to the state, and things blow up.
Well, I think if I break that down, think about it this way, right? Hispanics that have moved from, probably predominantly Mexico, but obviously other Latin countries in South America, they've come to America in pursuit of the American dream. 100%. Trump is the embodiment of the American dream. So, for me, if you are an Hispanic who is someone that has a lot of aspirations, and they've come to America because they want to achieve something, they want to gain some wealth, they want to live a good life, and they want to leave a good life and good opportunity for their children. It all comes back to the same point again. Well, it's the economy, because the economy is always going to be people's main concern. And when you have one candidate who is trusted so overwhelmingly over the other on the economy, it's really just a no-brainer on who's going to win, as far as I'm concerned.
If I could just add something to that, I think it's also a bit about the spirit of it, because if you speak to any person who's newly arrived in the United States, the one thing that they all have in common is that they love the United States. They love the freedom, the opportunity, and they can make something of themselves. In this election, you have one candidate who hates America, who wants to tear it down. He wants to subvert its institutions. We saw in the last video about stacking the Supreme Court. He wants to change America. He wants to apologize for it. He wants to go to Xi Jinping on hands and knees and kowtow before him for the crime of being Western. Then you have Donald Trump, who unashamedly loves America. And he loves the dream. He loves the country. He loves the democracy of it. And it just resonates with people, doesn't it?
Certainly. I mean, it resonates with me, and I don't live in America, but yeah. I want to, it's really made me believe that the American dream can be alive again. And it's really highlighted for me some of the real key issues that exist in our European cultures anyway. Like you say, when you talk about those things like the freedom to just kind of carve out your own future and your own path in life for yourself. That is something that appeals to me very much, and I think it's something that just really appeals to the average American voter, because that is what it means to be American, as far as my perception of the situation.
Listen to me. I live in a country with a 50% income tax rate. 50%. Okay, trust me, I love America.
So just as well, it's not just Florida and Arizona where Trump is winning right now. Georgia, again, you were talking about this, saying maybe this is a state that the Democrats might go for. Trump is winning there from anywhere between, whether it's a high turnout or a lower turnout, he's winning from anywhere between 2 and 5 points. Probably, numbers a little bit smaller than in 2016, there's no doubt, but again, they're trending towards Trump, and I just think by the time we come to the election, we're probably going to see similar numbers that he had in Georgia in 2016, if not better.
I think also what's important in Georgia specifically, it's this libertarian vote with Jorgensen. If you are a libertarian voter and it becomes very clear that Georgia's on the fence, well, for a libertarian, Donald Trump is vastly the lesser of two evils compared to Joe Biden. So when you go to that ballot box on voting day, to Donald Trump, rather than the socialist Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the antithesis of libertarianism. Donald Trump, he's a friend or an ally, if not a libertarian himself.
Yeah, and I think maybe the Supreme Court and the situation with the Supreme Court now possibly comes into play. Not because obviously Trump or the GOP now seems that they probably are going to get their nomination through, whether it's before the election or slightly after or whenever it is. But as we discussed before, it brings out the true colours of the Democrats, and all this talk about stacking the court and blowing up the system and all this kind of thing. All of that rhetoric really scares independent voters, like you say, or libertarians, people who are like, well, I don't really want to vote Republican, but if they feel as though their way of life is really at risk, if they feel as though those checks and balances, the things in the Constitution that they hold dear because they maintain, like I say, not maybe not necessarily like a status quo, but just that it makes it difficult for significant change to happen because you need
the state to grow exponentially.
Yeah, exactly. So they enjoy having all of those checks and balances in government, and when you have the Democrats, talking about removing things like the Electoral College or stacking the court, that scares libertarians, that scares independent voters who are probably now going to be more enthused to come out and vote for Trump. And Georgia is possibly a place where, like you say, where you might see that more so than in other states, that shift.
Especially in most southern states where libertarianism is strong.
Yeah, 100%. So it's all like there's a clear picture being painted here, which is that Trump is on the up and Biden is on the down, and there's so much to come. There's so many hurdles for Biden to get over. Just really to top it all off, again, North Carolina, a state which relatively close last year, not last election, I should say. And one that the Democrats are looking at targeting. They want to get North Carolina, they want to get places like Georgia, Arizona, Texas even. Are they really barking up the wrong tree? Trump again ahead on this one by 1 point in a newer poll. And if he's ahead by 1 point at this point, then you would expect him probably to increase that lead going in, and probably was going to carry the state again quite convincingly in the end.
Listen, it only gets stronger from here for Trump. He's got the debates to look forward to, and with the greatest respect on earth, no matter who you are, and if there is a Democrat who's made it 22 minutes in, good for you. But with the greatest intent in the world, the best case scenario for Joe Biden is that he gets through the debates unharmed in terms of the polls. He won't beat Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If he can maintain things as they are on the other side, I mean, obviously by the time the debates end, it's basically election day anyway. If he can maintain what he has now to the election, he has a chance. But when you look at the trends, the way things are going, and the way things are going in these swing states, it just seems that Trump is just getting all the support in the right places, and the Democrats just keep scoring own goal after own goal, when really all they had to do was just kind of put forward, take advantage of the coronavirus, take advantage of this unprecedented situation with the coronavirus, pin all of that blame on Trump and hope that maybe that sways enough swing voters for them to take the lead. But they just thrown it away, really, all of those opportunities, and
they would have been better off doing nothing for the last 2 months, which is what they tried to do at the start.
Which is what
right?
they tried, yeah. But obviously, I slated Biden for sitting in the basement, but obviously I was wrong. I think now he's come out, it's worse for him, and they probably knew that, and I didn't. So
go back, Joe. Go back to the basement. You're not doing too well.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up anyway what we've got for today. Of course, as any new polls come out, any new revelations, any significant swings, or even if this picture that we've painted now with the swing states along the south coast is still maintained, if that's still the case 2 weeks from now, then that's still significant. So, but any big turns in the polling, you'll hear about it here. So please subscribe and stay tuned.